I'm going to show you how to do some of the basic bead weaving techniques. I'm starting with even count peyote stitch. I'm using 9mo thread and a size 10 beading needle, and the beads I'm using are size 11 Delica beads. I'm going to be picking up 10 beads which will form both the first and second row of my beading. So I'm starting with pink and then white, so alternating pink and white 5 times to give me 10 beads in total, and then this will form the beginning of our peyote stitch. So that's the beads on there. I'm sliding those along the length of my thread, holding on to the tail of thread and making it easy to see my beads. I'm now going to pick up a third colour, which is turquoise, and these are going to form the third row, and these are going to sit on top of the white beads. So in order to do that, I'm sliding the white bead along, missing that, and going through the pink bead. So when I pull those beads up, they're going to sit on top of one another next to the pink bead. I'm now going to pick up another turquoise, miss the white, go through the pink. So these are pulling the white and pink beads into position, which would be the white as the first row, pink the second row, turquoise the third. So you carry on along here, picking up a new turquoise bead, missing the white, going through the pink. And once you get to the end of the row, you can see that peyote stitch sort of forms little teeth in the beading. So they're stacking up on top of one another really nicely and forming gaps in between the beads, which means it's easier to see on the next row where you go to fill in. So because I'm right-handed, I work right to left, so I flipped it over so I can see the gaps, and I can pick up my fourth colour, which is purple, and go through the turquoise. So that then fills in the gap here, picking up another purple bead and going through the turquoise, and you would do that all the way across to complete the row, and then turn your work over and keep filling in the gaps on each row, and that's how you build up peyote stitch. So now I'm going to show you how to do brick stitch. Brick stitch is formed by creating ladder stitch for the first row and then building up from there. So I'm using slightly larger beads here. These are size 8 Delica beads, and I'm going to start with 6 turquoise beads, and I'm just going to pick those straight up onto my thread. Now, to get all the beads in the right position, we're going to do ladder stitch. So I've got all my beads lined up here. I'm going to go through the second to last bead towards the end of the beads. So pulling that through there, this makes the 2 beads sit next to one another nice and snug. So then you do the same for the rest of your beads. So go through the next one towards the rest of the beads, pull the thread tight, then the next, pull the thread tight. Sometimes the thread doesn't line up straight, that's just a tension issue, and if you pull the threads tight they will neaten up. And the remaining 2. And now we have the foundation for our brick stitch. So now I'm going to work in purple beads, and to begin my brick stitch I don't want any thread exposed, so I'm actually picking up 2 beads at the beginning of my brick stitch row, and the threads that are in between the beads, so running along the top there where the holes are, we're actually going to utilise that and hook underneath the thread pull the beads down so they sit on top, sort of stacking. And then to anchor that in place and keep it straight, we're going to go back up through that second bead, and that holds them in place, and the thread is in the next place to pick up the new bead. We're just picking up a single bead this time, and then that goes under the thread, pull close and go up through the bead. Repeat that again. So under the thread, back up the bead, and do it again. So pick up the bead, under the thread, back up the bead. And that completes that row. You can see why it's called brick stitch by the way the beads stack up on top of one another, slightly off to one side, so in brick formation. It's a really nice technique, and to just carry on you would repeat that second row again on top of there to create the third row.